Tax hike is around the corner for Russian citizens. The number of inmates in prisons decreases by 60,000, all sent to the front lines, and street crime skyrockets. Russian top brainwasher is accused of lying by his own employee live on national TV. Lack of service personnel leads to road collapses. Two new Russian cars are on the market now, Volga and the Moscow Mule. Summer fires start raging all over the country, but where are the firefighters? Stalin's name is brought back from the Oblivion and glorified, and the biggest news of the week, how Russia is changing as society and what direction it is heading to. Howdy friends, my name is Konstantin and welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Welcome to Fridays. I give you crazy news updates straight out of the mad circus that Russia has become. But first things first, there's no such absurdity that cannot be realized in Russia these days. Please remember that. And the news, I call them crazy news from Russia, and they're becoming crazier by the week. But before I start, I'd like to tell you a joke, as usual. Putin dies and goes to heaven. I know, that's a joke in itself. But an angel greets him at the gate and looks very puzzled. He goes, Vladimir, we certainly did not expect you to show up here. Well, since you made it here, we don't know what to do with you, so we decide to give you 1 day in heaven and 1 day in hell. And after, you can vote on where you want to go. First they go to hell. Putin gets out and sees a bright green golf course and all his friends Shoigu, Patrushev, Gerasimov, Sechin, Prigozhin, Lavrov and the rest of the gang playing golf. They run towards Putin, joyfully hug him, start remembering old good days of how they all got super rich together and all had absolute power. They play a round of golf, drink, eat lobster, all have a good time. The day passes very quickly. And Putin goes to heaven. And for the next 24 hours, he spent his time by jumping from cloud to cloud, playing harp, praying and singing. And the day lasts very long, finally ends. So Putin makes the choice. He votes for hell. And they take Putin to hell. He gets there, and this time it's not a green picturesque golf field, but a huge desert all littered with garbage, with fires everywhere and smelling like sulfur. And among all of that, there are his old friends, all dirty, exhausted, dressed in dungarees, collecting garbage and packing it into the mountains of black plastic bags that seem to have no end. Satan comes up and says, Hey Vlad, welcome, been waiting for you here. I don't understand, Putin bubbles. Yesterday was a different picture. It was a golf course, club. We had dinner. We had lobster, caviar. All in general, we had such a good time. So it was yesterday. And now, this just desert littered with garbage and all my friends are suffering. Satan looks at him, smiles and says, My friend, yesterday we had an election campaign. And today, well, you have already voted for us. Now straight to the news. Let me start with inevitable. No, not with death, but with taxes. When taxation system in a country changes, it's always a big deal, a huge deal, because, death and taxes concerns each one of us. But believe it or not, they aren't discussing taxes in Russia much now. Because there are bigger news than taxes, the war in Ukraine, the purge of the generals, things like that. Russians are facing increase of personal income taxes, and businesses also are facing the increases of business taxes, income tax as well. And the increase will be significant. It's one of the methods to help emptying federal budget, to help fill it up. And of course, the easiest way to put states' greasy, dirty hand even deeper into the pocket of citizens and businesses. And the right time has come. Putin announced, the president, for the first time, for the fifth time, The sugarcoating of the election campaign is off. The Russians have voted. Now they're off to play golf. Well, not so fast, because it was the election campaign playing golf. Now they'll be picking up and packing all that trash. They're facing the tax increases, among other things, instantly after the elections. But that's hardly news. We have seen it coming. I've talked about it so many times since last June. I mean, it was obvious right on the surface. What is the news today is that Russian propaganda has started conditioning people. It looks like someone just pressed a button and turned this big brainwashing machine on. The propaganda media are calling the tax increase a laser-sharp, precise adjustment, taxation improvement, fine-tuning of the taxes, measure long overdue that will make taxes fair. And all the newspapers, all the websites controlled by the government have just started talking about conditioning. Well, this is how it's called in Russia these days. Measure long overdue that will make taxes fair. I have truth for you Russians, although it might be a little bitter, okay? New taxes will not be fair. It'll just be more taxes. That's it. You will not get anything for that. No better roads, no better healthcare, just more taxes. What always amazes me is how Russian people are buying it without thinking much and asking questions. The source of this news is Russian propaganda outlets. All you have to do is just to look at them. Another news is a little Russian, a little American, and a little, well, Nvidian. I wonder if any one of you has stock of a company called NVIDIA. It's a technological and manufacturing company, American company, that produces video cards. Now, how much is NVIDIA's market capitalization now? NVIDIA is Russia's entire GDP plus $300 billion in cash. Mighty powerful Russia, before claiming world's superiority, catch up with NVIDIA first. The source of this news is the stock market. Another news is criminal, literally. The number of inmates in Russian prisons in 2023 decreased by 58,000 people. The total number of prisoners last year amounted to 240,000 people. The decrease in the number of prisoners in 2022 and 2023 is directly related to recruitment of inmates to participate in the war in Ukraine, or forcing them. We don't know at this point. But this is hardly news. We all have known that for a while. What is the news is that this information is official now. The penitentiary authorities are openly admitting that the inmates are going to the front lines. Well, 58,000 people, 58,000 of inmates have gone to Ukraine so far. It's official, folks. Imagine what's already happening on the streets of Russia. Imagine a wave of crime that is already in the Russian cities and towns. All those convicted criminals, thieves, murderers, rapists, child molesters, children kidnappers, at least those who survived by the war and were pardoned by Vladimir Putin 6 months later after they spent at the front lines for 6 months, they're back to the streets doing what they know the best. Guess who's just got back today? Them wild-eyed boys that been away. Haven't changed, hadn't much to say. But man, I still call them cats are crazy. Boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. Boys are back in town. And the boys are indeed back into Russian towns. Imagine the high number of crimes. A real crime wave is rising. But we won't know that because that information is actually secret. Now, if I were Russian living in Russia, I would be getting very worried just about now. Imagine a Hollywood movie where all criminals are released from prisons all at once and chaos descends. Only in Russia it's not a movie any longer. 60,000 boys are out of prisons, and that's just all we know. And they're back in town. Or the towns. Back into the Russian towns. The source of this information is a journal of the Federal Penitentiary Service. Now, before I jump to the next news, I'd like to thank you. Those of you who bought me coffees at buymecoffee.com, thank you so very much. Your support shows that you like what I do, and I find it incredibly inspiring. And the comments that you send me along with your coffees, they are so heartwarming and priceless. Thank you so very much. The next news is Russian propaganda star Vladimir Solovyov. That's about him. He runs his own show called Solovyov Live on the internet and on Russian TV channel Russia 1. He's always there. His show consists of him in the middle, the host, and other reporters. They usually discuss Ukraine, the war, the political opposition, the usual propaganda stuff. Well, this show has gotten off so far that his own employee, the reporter, started calling him liar while being live in front of the entire Russia on Russia 1 TV. Check it out.
Когда заканчивается передача, вы раздаете оценку каждому говорящему.
Когда
вы
это?
забываете.
Ноутшотинг. Когда я это делал?
Виталий Анатольевич, вы выбирайте выражение.
Выбирайте. Вы что сейчас сказали?
Виталий Анатольевич,
Кому я раздаю оценку? Я рассказываю мнение по поводу того, что сказали,
вы, пожалуйста,
а
успокойтесь.
не оценку.
Виталий Анатольевич, вы, пожалуйста,
Не надо лгать.
Oh, I'm just loving it.
Лгать не надо. Никаких оценок каждому, кто...
Я боюсь, нам с вами придется расстаться.
Ну вы ради бога.
Если вы имеете наглость обвинять меня во лжи, вы либо не очень хорошо понимаете, что говорите, либо вы окончательно перестали понимать значение слов. Виталий Анатольевич, при всем моем уважении к вам, я никому не позволю обвинять меня во лжи.
Вы только что сказали, что я после каждой передачи обсуждаю
Вы расставляете оценки. Вы говорите, вы сказали плохо. Я с этим
Никогда я так не говорил.
Виталий Анатольевич,
Никогда я так не говорил.
Вот присутствуют люди, которые могут подтвердить.
Воспроизведите. Я никогда не говорил, что вы сказали плохо.
Вы говорите, я с вами не согласен. А вот вас я...
The guy starts making excuses now. He understands that he's in trouble,
Это есть не оценка выступающему.
Я прошу вас, успокоиться, и забыть о моем существовании. После того, что вы сказали, я, как правило, не позволяю людям со мной так говорить. Вы можете работать, вы можете говорить, вы можете быть. Просто вот забудьте, пожалуйста, о моем существовании. Потому что обвинять меня во лжи, извините, непозволительно никому.
Почему это? Когда вы прямо сказали неправду.
Потому что дальше это будет суд. Потому что это на самом деле.
Да не надо меня пугать.
А я вас вообще не пугаю. Всего хорошего. Чем здесь связи?
I just love. I really enjoyed watching this. I usually say Russia is shaking. Things are shaking behind the curtains. Well, things are shaking on the surface right now, in front of the curtain, on the stage. When Solovyov is repeatedly called liar in front of the entire country live by the person who is paid by him, by Solovyov, that's pretty darn bad, Not going according to the plan. And the source of this information, Russia 1, Russia 1 Solovyov live show. Moving on to Uryupinsk, a provincial town in the center of Russia. Check this out.
А что случилось?
Охрененно было. Провалилась. Прямо вот перед глазами.
Она обсыпается, вон еще дальше.
Все, правда, сейчас
Ох, не Ой, вылазь с той стороны! С той стороны вылазь, блядь! Вот ты.
What surprised me was not the car that almost fell into the abyss, but the size of that abyss and lack of emergency service personnel as well as the police. That's a very dangerous hole, hazard. Did you see the size of that? But there's no one to react anymore. Why? Because those who should react are in Ukraine, in the front lines. and some of them most likely dead by now. Not going according to the plan. The source for this information is Urupinsk News Telegram channel. By the way, there will be many more news like that. And if you want to keep up with other breaking news coming from Russia, become patron of Inside Russia. Every single day I carefully select and post 9 news that I find important, along with my commentaries and analysis. Everything you wanted to know about Russia, but always were afraid to ask type of thing. So become patron at patreon.com and get access to the news that matter. The link to sign up is down below, right there. And the next news is actually pretty good for a change. Positive. I'm criticized sometimes for having only negative news, but hey, I'm really trying to find good news. There's just not too many good news coming out of Russia these days. But I think I found one, and this is epic. The famous Russian Volga car. The Soviet classic, the one and only, the sought-after symbol of Soviet success, is back into production. 2024 is turning out to be the revival of Russian car making. First, they showed us the wonderful Moscow Mule. Personally, I love it. It's a new page in the modern design paradigm called sustainable design. It's designed after real mule. It repeats all the shapes and forms of real mule. It's red, like Ferrari, so it gives you a sense of sportiness, speed, dareness, motorsport, assist motorsport. The rumors have it that the world-famous Moscow-based graphic design school bureau Bang Bang Education is behind the design of this wonderful Moscow Mule creation. Yes, the famous Bang Bang Education. I mean, who else would design something like that in Russia? This is a real high level. But hey, enough about Moscow Mule. The car is the old news. The real news is that the Moscow Mules are coming in large numbers to car dealers near... No, not you. Near them. And they should be coming anytime now, because last year that's what the plans were. That's what we were promised publicly in Russia. And Russian government, doesn't give empty promises, right? So they will start producing Moscow Mules, and I'm waiting anxiously to reserve my own Moscow Mule. Hey, I'll buy it, I'll do a review, and make a video on YouTube. How about that? But that's just the beginning. And the second car hitting the market is Volga, the second original car that will be designed and manufactured in Russia. But Bang Bang Education is still working on the Moscow Mule. I just love saying that Bang Bang Education is working on the Moscow Mule. It just sounds so sexy, But the Moscow Mule is only in plans, and Volga is already being produced. On May 21st, just a few days ago, there was a presentation of the revived Volga, and the passenger car at this expo was presented, the expo called Digitalization of Industrial Russia. And here's a Volga for you. And that's very good, modern. Not necessarily the Moscow Mule. That vehicle has set the design bar pretty high, but still Volga is, somewhat pretty. And not just one model was announced at that expo, but 3. 3 models at the same time: Volga C40, Volga K30, and Volga K40. Russian automaking industry is back. And all in all, it's the great news. But it turns out there's a fly in the ointment. It's Chinese. It's the Chinese. Oh, those no good stealing Chinese. It turns out they stole Volga's secret designs. They stole all three models. C30, K30, and K40. They have started manufacturing them. Already turns out that, that they've been making this exact Volga models for years now. Millions of the Chinese are driving those Volgas already. Look at this. Look, it's bad. The Chinese stole everything. The designs, the engine, the steering. No. And add to the problems of Volga, Mikhail Mishustin, Russian Prime Minister, visited the stand with Volga car at the exhibition and took a close look at it. And he was kind of angry. I mean, check this out.
Можно его позвать? Да. Друзья, я почему говорю, вот просто попытки все равно делать даже такие элементы, так сказать, из пластика, из всего у себя надо предпринимать. У нас уже по композитам есть производство в Алабуге, Росатом делает. У нас с вами, выходили, никто не знает еще.
Listen to very carefully what he has to say. I'll translate in a second and look at the reaction of the ministers standing right next to him.
Это проще, чем коробку локализовать. Правильно же? Конечно. Сами скажите, коллеги. Это же проще, чем коробку. Вот можно? Да. Просто хотя бы для того, чтобы мы отходили. Сейчас проект атома того же КамАЗа.
So, he demanded that at least a plasticky low-tech steering wheel of this Russian-made car be actually manufactured in Russia. Just steering wheels. He isn't asking too much, he says. I'm not asking too much. Just the steering wheel, for goodness sake. It's not as sophisticated as, say, to adapt gearbox. Not to produce, but to adapt gearbox, the Chinese gearbox to Russian market, whatever adaptation it needs. For goodness sake, this is a simple steering wheel, he says. Make at least steering wheel in Russia. Can you do that? We have some plasticky production. And the good Russian ministers around him just nod saying, yep, we could do that. Or we could do that. We could manufacture steering wheels. In theory, that's what they think. But that's just all small details. It's clear, the car manufacturers and bang education, car design backing them. The Russian automaking industry is making a return. Well, it's coming back sometimes in the future. Just give it a little time. Like 50 years. 75 to be on the safe side. And the next news comes from Rostov-on-Don. Remember, tenement blocks there are so poorly maintained that they literally fall apart and fall down. That is Rostov about 6 months ago. Well, guess what happened in 6 months? Absolutely nothing. There hasn't been any help from the local authorities. Owners of the apartments were not even allowed to return and get their stuff out of their apartments. People became so upset that this happened. They stormed. This is how the mad Russians look like.
Когда мама с Лизой приехали на Нариманова.
Бабик. Кира, на максималку все, что есть, перескладывай.
А я тебе сказала, что не ударила по лицу, запротоколируйте вот это вот
Cop
существо.
hit a pregnant woman on the face.
А потом на беременную женщину пихала здесь, кидалась, детей отшвыривала. Существо, еще полицией называют себя.
I don't know how about you, folks, but to me, it's a very sad picture. It's a pathetic sight. this scene where people are trying to climb inside windows into their own apartments, to me, it's very sad. They don't have dignity. And this is exactly how I remember people around me in the USSR. No dignity and without rights. And I hate remembering that because I hated having no dignity, myself included. We were just small bolts in this huge system with no rights and no dignity. The USSR is back indeed. The dignity is gone. The source of this news is Rostov City Telegram channel. Well, the next two news are actually crazy. As crazy as it gets. Check this out.
Подписывают директор Федеральной службы войск Национальной гвардии Российской Федерации и председатель Центрального духовного управления.
The Russian National Guard and the Central Spiritual Administration of Muslims of Russia signed cooperation agreement last week. What kind of cooperation they could sign? They're not the opposite sides of life, you know? What the fudge? The next news is absolute fire, literally. The fire season has started. In a few regions, including Nizhny Novgorod, the fires are burning. Field and forest fires. Lack of heat and water. Power outages last winter. Then flooding in the spring. It just happened. And now forest fires. And this is mid-May. What's going to happen in July when it gets real hot and dry in Russia? Who are you going to call? Ghostbusters? Well, might as well, because all firefighters are in the front lines in Ukraine. Folks, tsunami is here, and it's not just the economic tsunami, it's everything. The source of this information is Komsomolskaya Pravda, Nizhny Novgorod. It's a large newspaper. The couple news are about prices. Inflation is under control. That's what Vladimir Putin was telling Russian citizens for over 2 years now. Well, what's really going on with prices? Let's check out for simple things. For example, cell phones. Mobile communication tariffs are rising in price again. In April, among all other services, the prices of mobile communication tariffs, plans, increased by 8.5%. And that's just in 1 month because they keep on rising every single month. The growth has been very significant, but hey, Russia, what do you know? Putin says the inflation is under control. Then it means it's under control. What about the rising prices? Traitor. Get him out of here. What about strawberries? Oh, I love strawberries. Strawberry season in Russia right now is on. I used to eat so much of them at 250 rubles a kilo. But those times are long gone. This year, the price of strawberries, 600 rubles per kilo. Strawberry prices are up 20% from last year. But hey, Russia, what do you know, huh? Putin says the inflation is under control. It's under control. Prices of strawberries high for you? Hey, police, take him out of here. Traitor. Foreign agent. Out. The source of this information is Rose Business Consulting. Real deal. Another news comes from space. I kid you not. Space. This what was seen in southern Russia last week. A couple days ago. Check this out. Does it look like a meteor to you? It's a pretty good shot. Look. Well, all media in Russia immediately went irate. It was a meteor. Well, the thing is, meteors aren't that slow and they give so much more light. They are lightning fast. Now, that was a meteor. Just a couple days prior in Spain and in Portugal. What was seen in southern Russia? That I don't know. If you have any idea, please let me know down in the comments below. Would love to know your opinion. Again, I have no clue. But I think for sure it wasn't a meteor. Okay, before we move to the last news, I'd like to ask you a favor. Please let me know what you think of this news selection down below in the comments. Did you like them? Anything you liked more and perhaps something you didn't like at all? Please let me know in the comments. I appreciate the feedback very much. It helps me grow as creator and select better news every time. And the last news, I always put the most important news that I find in Russia, the biggest news at the end. But this time I couldn't find one biggest news. I have a few. And gosh, I don't even know how to approach it. I tried to spice up the news with sarcasm and humor. I know, sometimes it turns out to be not so funny, but hey, I try. Sarcasm, humor, and my atrocious attempts of singing, well, that's really a caricature of singing, just like I did a few minutes before. They are my way of coping with this dark reality. But what I'm about to show you, I can't add any sarcasm to it. I thought of it, I don't know how to add sarcasm to this to keep it decency, okay? Well, check this out. In Irkutsk province, Irkutsk is in the southwestern Siberia of Russia. So, in Irkutsk province, near the village of Novaya Uda, the inscription Stalin appeared on a mountain or a large hill. It was placed on Mount Kitkai in honor of Joseph Stalin. And by the way, in Russian it says Stalin in large letters. So he is honored. That was where his first exile to Siberia happened, and he lived there. And according to Anatoly Obukhov, the deputy of Legislative Assembly of Irkutsk province, the inscription is installed near the gazebo, which was also erected in honor of Joseph Stalin in Soviet times. In 2022, local authorities restored this building, gazebo, claiming Stalin allegedly climbed Mount Kitkai in 1903. So those letters are where Stalin climbed to. This inscription and the gazebo were done for the taxpayers' money. The authorities spent 258,000 rubles. I just don't know how to be sarcastic about that. My grandparents' generation hated Joseph Stalin. He was a serial killer, a murderer with blood of tens of millions of Soviet people on his hands. My generation, children growing up in the 70s and in the 80s, had very bad association with Joseph Stalin and what he did. We felt ashamed. Obviously, not all of us. Some have brought his name from the Oblivion and are glorifying it now. It tells me one thing. The history in Russia is repeating itself. Stalin has not died. He's still alive and in many people's heads. Let me tell you, folks, there will be more blood. Because, again, the history in Russia is repeating itself. Now, I'll show you another video to refresh your memory. When Alexei Navalny was killed in prison 3 months ago, hundreds of thousands of Russians were honoring his memory. Most came to monuments to victims of political oppression, and there are monuments like that in every Russian major city because there was so much oppression in Russia. It's, you know, it's our history, oppressive history, you know. And that's a legacy of Joseph Stalin, by the way. All that oppression happened because of him, and he's honored in Russia now. So that was happening in most of places. Regular people bought flowers and came to these monuments to honor Alexei Navalny. This particular scene was filmed in the city of Novosibirsk on February 16th in the evening.
Я заточен об этом. А в это время здесь не должно быть никого, понимаете? Это вечернее время.
Я пока не получил достоверной информации. Никакой письменной информации за подписью, приказа пока не получил. Все, что я пока что получил, это устные данные. Устное разъяснение. Нет никаких писем.
А где вам дали? Вами кто-то командует, что ли?
Вы дали нам устное разъяснение. Или вы не даете нам устное разъяснение? Ваш сотрудник как-то ведет себя странно. Проверьте, пожалуйста, на наркотическое опьянение. Его личностный знак. У меня четкое подозрение, что человек находится в наркотическом опьянении. Хорошо, мы находимся за оцеплением.
Это понятно, что вы ради своей же безопасности просто пойдите чуть дальше.
Так вот же вы огородили.
Я говорю, ради вашей же личной безопасности пойдите чуть дальше. Вашей безопасности. Вас проинформируют.
The police simply did not allow people to approach the monuments, and it happened all over Russia. This particular scene was filmed, but same kind of scenes happened everywhere. And the policemen were not giving explanations why they were saying, go home, it's much warmer, nicer home, it's for your own security, and so forth. And you know, many of those who were laying flowers nearby, because they were not allowed to get to the monuments, so they would lay flowers someplace near, they were arrested for alleged littering. And that was just an excuse to arrest and torture those who support and admire Alexei Navalny. Many Russians, they don't forget that they are voters and taxpayers. They were officially complaining for police stripping them of their constitutional rights. They were writing complaints and inquiries why police was acting in a way that was acting. And 3 months later, now, 3 months have passed, and the complaints are getting answered. Slowly, but getting answered. I'll cite the answer of the head of the District Police Department of Novosibirsk, Andrei Shulzhenko, to the complaint made on that evening of February 16th, you know, about that filming. I quote, "The monument to the victims of political oppression was fenced off with a signal tape for reasons unknown to the police. The police officers were standing at the memorial due to the lack of understanding of the reason of why they were placed there." Unquote. Were they also arresting people for the lack of understanding why they were arresting people? Back then, in February, they spat on constitutional rights of Russian people. But it's even worse now. They are officially admitting that they are spat into the faces of Russian people. They are admitting that they broke the law for the reasons they themselves do not understand. Some people ask, what is Putin's Russia? In a very short answer, this is Putin's Russia. The next, I don't even know how to classify it, Let me just show you, and that is the head of Rostov province Russian Orthodox Church.
Женщина, это из практики. Из вашей? Из моей практики. Она пришла мне и поведала следующую историю, что муж, с которым она прожила там, более 40 лет, он состарился, он шаркает ногами, когда ходит по комнате, он раздражает ее тем, что оставляет где-то вещи, там еще что-то. «Что мне делать?» – спросила она меня. И сказал: «Убейте его».
Что сказали?
Я сказал ей: убейте его.
Так.
Она говорит: как? Ну, очень просто. Тихо, спокойно подсыпайте мышьяк ему в еду. Ну, никто же на вас не подумает, что вы его отравили мышьяком. Он тихо изогнется. Шок. А даже триггер. Она говорит: я не могу этого сделать. Я говорю: не можешь, тогда терпи. Ты же его любишь.
I have nothing to say. I simply don't know what to say. I tell you one thing. I don't go to that church anymore. I find God right here in my heart, but not in that church. And the last news of today, of this week, before I play another video for you, I want you to meet this guy. It's a Russian Senator Vitaly Milonov, 50-year-old Russian senator from St. Petersburg. Quite famous because he is a very public figure. He speaks publicly a lot. He's a member of Putin's political party called United Russia. He was elected the senator twice. Now he's in the second term, and he is a father of 6 children.
Можно вон у коллег из КПРФ спросить, у них когда-то были славные времена. Один ледоруб, так сказать, и минус Троцкий. И я призываю не стесняться в методах и разнообразить даже ножики, там всякие топорики. Вот.
Коммунисты выглядят более гуманными.
Да, кувалды, я бы с удовольствием... Слушайте, я не стесняюсь, я сам лично готов Макаревичу дать этим ледорубам по голове, и я буду счастлив, если Родина мне поручит.
You know, again, I don't know how to comment that. I don't know what to say. That's a Russian senator, active senator, a member of the parliament, lower chamber. You've seen everything. You've heard the Russian senator saying the most horrible things. A Russian senator. You know, this last news, these last few videos, they show you that Russia is not well. And quite honestly, I'm putting it mildly. There's something fundamentally wrong with the society. Russians don't just watch these horrendous things. They live these things. And most Russians keep silent. And many even support. I don't want to judge these people in these last videos. I don't want to judge the society by these last videos. I want you to make your own opinions about what you just saw. And please let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. I'm confused, you know. Actually, I'll tell you one thing. These videos make me scared. And I'm glad I left Russia almost 2 years ago. Leaving my country behind was scary, scary, scary. But you know what? Not nearly as scary as seeing what's happening in Russia now, seeing these people say this horrendous thing, and most, not just saying, society is keeping silent and silently supporting them. That's what is really scaring me. By the way, if you want to see how I was leaving Putin's Russia forever, and I did that in a hurry, I only had 36 hours to go, check it out right here. I documented everything, and I'm gonna put a link right over here.